So let me ask you first, are you ready? Because in the next few days, the entire world media is going to be talking about India. Western outlets will be writing non-stop. Some will hype, some will criticize, and many will absolutely lose it. Because now it's confirmed. On December 4th and 5th, Vladimir Putin, a man who has arrest warrants and threats waiting for him in several countries, is visiting India. Yes, let that sink in. And you can imagine what's coming next. If the West is already furious over India buying Russian oil, this visit is going to set off alarms across Washington and Europe. The moment Indian media started publishing articles hinting that New Delhi and Moscow might discuss new defense deals, Western outlets immediately began printing headlines like, India planning major arms deal with Russia during Putin visit. They're claiming India is interested in Russia's S-500 missile defense system, the one Russians say can destroy satellites. Now the million-dollar question, is the S-500 really capable of taking down satellites? Well, Russian officials proudly say yes. American defense analysts, they disagree. According to US analysts, the S-500 can easily shoot down fighter jets and missiles within a 600-kilometer envelope. But satellites? Only the very low orbit ones. The ones that sometimes dip as close as 200 kilometers from Earth. Meaning, yes, the S-500 can kill satellites, but in a limited envelope. Still, think strategically. If India's adversaries even fear that an S-500 could blind their surveillance satellites in a conflict, that gives India a massive edge. And don't forget, Pakistan today has 8 satellites, only 4 or 5 of which are serious assets. If hostility ever escalates in the future, India may be forced to target some of them. So yes, the S-500 could be a complete game changer. Now let's talk about the politics. Putin wants deeper engagement with India in every domain. His target? $100 billion India-Russia trade by 2030. And frankly, with India still buying Russian oil at full speed, this doesn't look impossible at all. Despite US pressure, despite Trump's statements, India is still importing Russian crude worth 2.5 billion euros in October alone, and the numbers aren't slowing down. Ukrainian media tracks this more closely than anyone. They publish reports constantly about India-Russia ties, and honestly, you can't blame them. Because in all of 2025, Putin traveled to just 5 countries. And except one, all were for multilateral summits. Belarus, June, near zero diplomatic distance. Alaska, August, the infamous failed Trump summit. China, SCO summit. Tajikistan, CIS summit. Kyrgyzstan, CSTO summit. Not a single bilateral visit. India is the only country in 2025 where Putin is making a direct, exclusive state visit. This tells you everything. But here's the really big thing to watch. Will India and Russia finally sign the major military logistics pact, the re-loss agreement, reciprocal exchange of logistics support? India already has logistics agreements with USA, Limoe, France, Australia, Japan, Singapore, UK, South Korea, but not Russia. Why? Because Western pressure. Once this pact is signed, Russia's Navy and Air Force will have seamless access to Indian bases across the Indian Ocean. And in a crisis, say a natural disaster like a massive Indian Ocean tsunami, Russia could deploy resources instantly to support India. Russian parliament has already signaled approval. Now the ball is in India's court. But make no mistake, this is going to trigger a massive reaction in Washington. This will be the first time India signs a military logistics pact with a country outside the Western Bloc. Anti-India narratives will explode. Can the West trust India if it aligns militarily with Russia? Expect opinion columns, expect think tank noise, expect political theatrics. I'm personally waiting to see Trump's reaction because let's be honest, India-US relations are already tense, and one impulsive Trump tweet during Putin's visit could escalate things fast. The next few days will be very interesting. And here's where things get even more intense, because the world isn't just watching India's Russia partnership. The world is measuring it. Every statement, every handshake, every trade deal, everything is being tracked like a global chess move. Washington is watching, Brussels is watching, Beijing is watching, even Kyiv is watching every negotiation line by line, because India's Russia policy has become a strategic variable in global geopolitics. And make no mistake, India is fully aware of the leverage it carries. This isn't 1990s India. This is 2025 India, third largest economy, fastest growing major power, nuclear-armed state, spacefaring giant, and the world's most important swing state in geopolitics. Why the world can't ignore India's move toward Russia. Because here's the raw reality. Russia needs India economically. India needs Russia militarily. The West needs India strategically. That's a power triangle where India holds the balance. The West wants India to stay aligned with its Indo-Pacific vision, but at the same time, the West is furious that India is still buying Russian oil, increasing imports, and now potentially expanding defense cooperation. But what the West cannot publicly admit is that it has no leverage over India anymore. Sanctions won't work, pressure won't work, diplomatic warnings. Nobody in New Delhi is losing sleep over those, because India has done something the West didn't expect. It has built parallel relationships. India's relationship with the US is strong. India's relationship with France is strong. And yet India is also deepening ties with Russia. And India's leaders have made it very clear. India will not choose sides. India will choose its interests. And that statement alone is shaking up global diplomacy. The S-500 conversation. Why it's causing panic in Western capitals. The possibility that India may discuss or negotiate access to the S-500 air defense system is giving sleepless nights to several governments. Because the S-400 was already a nightmare for rival air forces. The S-500, that's an entirely different beast. Even if India doesn't buy the complete system right away, just the talk of such cooperation disrupts strategic balances. The West knows one thing clearly. If India gets S-500 capability, even partially, the entire South Asian aerospace dynamic changes overnight. And for Pakistan, this is terrifying. Pakistan has always relied on satellites provided or assisted by China. And if there is even a possibility that India could target low-orbit assets, Pakistan knows it loses its biggest battlefield advantage, surveillance. And trust me, India's adversaries understand deterrence very well. They don't need India to fire anything. Just the fear is enough. An adversary will hesitate before launching a missile, before moving a fighter squadron, before starting an operation, if they know India has the ability to blind them. That is what the S-500 represents. Not an attack weapon, a fear weapon, and fear is a very effective strategic tool. Russia's 2030 vision with India, Putin's government has already made it crystal clear. They want India-Russia trade to hit $100 billion by 2030. And honestly, it's not unrealistic, because Russia doesn't have many major trade partners left. Sanctions close the doors to Europe. The US market is gone. Japan and South Korea stepped back. Even neutral countries are playing safe. But India? India didn't lecture. India didn't condemn. India simply focused on one thing, national interest. India bought oil when the world said not to. India increased imports when the world expected India to stop. And while the West was criticizing, India was refining Russian oil and selling it back to Europe at massive profit margins. That's not diplomacy. That's strategic genius. And right now, Russia sees India as its last major doorway to global economic stability. Let's be honest, former President Trump's reactions will be unpredictable. He may tweet something bizarre like, India is making a bad deal with Russia. Very bad. Terrible. Or he might suddenly flip and say something like, India is a great friend. Modi is a smart guy. Russia is complicated, but we'll see. You never know. But the Biden-Trump administration's policy machinery, the Pentagon, and the State Department will certainly push back diplomatically. Expect statements like, we are monitoring India-Russia cooperation. We urge India to consider global security concerns. We hope India aligns more closely with democratic values. But let me be blunt. India isn't going to reverse anything because of these statements. Because India knows the US needs India to counter China. Washington can be unhappy, Washington can criticize, Washington can frown, but Washington cannot punish India. Not anymore.